Okay, so my first bike was a Gen 1 Hayabusa.
Wow, awesome.
I was just turned 16. And I was like...
First of all, congratulations for being alive and being here.
Dude, it's really noteworthy to like have enough respect for something and not let it mangle you up real bad.
Yeah. All right, well, introduce yourself for the folks at home.
My name is Ben. I live in Cedar Park. I've been here for a long time. I own a shop here called OTM Garage, stands for One Track Mind, and I just build dumb shit that I like.
Cool. So that shop was motorcycles, cars?
Everything, man.
Everything?
Doesn't matter. I don't do a whole lot of like off-road stuff.
Yeah.
But anything that can hurt you at an accelerated rate is kind of my bread and butter.
Nice. How long have you been riding motorcycles?
Since I was 15. And if that's if you don't count dirt bikes.
How old are you now?
I'm 32.
32. Okay, yeah. So a solid 17 years in the saddle.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
More time riding than not.
Absolutely.
All right, so we got to get to the meat of the topic today, and that is, how did you get into the Hayabusa in the first place?
Okay, so my first bike was a Gen 1 Hayabusa.
Wow.
Awesome.
I was just turned 16. And I was like...
First of all, congratulations for being alive and being here.
Dude, it's really noteworthy to like have enough respect for something and not let it mangle you up real bad.
Yeah.
So I'm still here breathing and riding these death traps. So I think that's a good
So when
sign.
you were 16, first bike was a Hayabusa,
yeah.
And it's been with you ever since, clearly.
Yeah, I'm 6'1", and I'm about 200 pounds. Mm-hmm. Depends on, you know, what I ate today. And I like the big body bikes. I don't fit on normal leaders very well, and I think a lot of people feel the same way. It's not the fastest thing. Busas may have been at one point in time, but that's not really the case anymore unless you have modded death traps like you and I have.
Yes.
So,
yes.
I don't know, something kind of stuck with me. Everybody's got a preference on like what they really like. And maybe it's like the first girl you fell in love with. That kind of explains why I stuck with it. But I don't know. I like big body bikes. I like that they're comfortable. Like you can ride them wherever you want for as long. You don't have to worry about your arms and your back falling asleep all the time. Yeah. I don't know. It's just, and it's an ugly kind of pretty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's an acquired taste. I think a lot of people would say.
Yeah. It's like really like Scotch whiskey.
Yeah. Yeah, so Spite and I always talk about how it's like the first bike you start on, you do have a bit of like a love affair for. Like you started on a Harley, I started on a Yamaha, you always just have a little bit of a love affair. So since you started on the Busa, you know, you have that love affair with it. But what other bikes have you ridden? Have you ridden a bunch of other bikes, or?
I've ridden a lot of different bikes, but I tend to stay towards like the big four. Yeah. So Yamaha, Honda, Suzuki. Obviously I have a preference with Suzuki, but R1s, I spent a couple weeks on an R1 Raven, and I don't have much of an ass, so it makes it really hard to spend any time on it because it's just uncomfortable as hell. Probably my favorite bike that's not one of these is an S1K.
Yeah.
Double R. It's probably the best overall bike I've ridden, like leader bike wise. Followed up very closely by an H2. But I want something that I don't have to like worry about.
Yeah.
I don't have to think about if it's going to give me issues, or probably the main reason I've never owned a Ducati is for that.
I feel like
alone.
As a diehard Hayabusa guy, even uttering the words H2 must be, you know, a little.
That's why you buy it. That's why you build a Turbo Busa.
We're gonna get into that. We're gonna get into that because yeah, you don't just own this bike. You have a Turbo Hayabusa. We're gonna talk about.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So, getting actually into that subject, nice little segue here. So you started on the Gen 1 Busa. Mm-hmm. Did you then realize at some point, oh, man, it's not fast enough, let's go ahead and slap a turbo on it, or did you ride somebody else's turbo bike first?
No, actually, after I had my first Gen 1, I had it for a couple of years. And I found, I think it was an 06, the white limited, and I really, really liked that bike. And then it got, you know, a baby stretch and a Shinko and a bunch of bolt-ons. And I liked doing this more than I should. So I went out to a meet. This was back when like Austin was like a haven for like upper deck street racing. And
now it's Houston, right?
it is Houston.
Yeah.
I think kind of corners it. Hard to do around here, and
Yeah.
there are big exceptions. Toll, dig nights, that kind of stuff. If you want to go see some fast cars and bikes, there are plenty of places to do it here in Austin. But you used to be able to run upper deck all night, not have to worry about it. And I was on that limited full bolt-ons little stretch, and I got walked by a big turbo built motor Catfish Camaro, and
You're like, never
I
again.
was 19 when that happened, and I always thought there was like a really big gap between cars and bikes. I was wrong. There's not. This is Texas. Like, there's plenty of trucks here that can gap me now. But I went home, like everyone does, and started doing this, trying to find what I could possibly do. I didn't want to get beat like that by a Camaro or any car for that matter.
Yeah.
And then I got a baby shot. I got a 35 shot.
Okay.
And that held me off for a while, but I hated filling bottles. It was annoying. It was just an inconvenience. I wanted power all the time.
Yeah.
And I upped the shot and just played nitrous for, a little bit longer. But I was 24, I think it was, and I actually bought a Turbo Busa. And I was still living in Texas, and there was a black one listed in St. Augustine, Florida, and really nice black 06 turbo, internally gated, made 287, I think it was. So I flew down and bought it, and the guy's like, "Where's your truck?" I was like, "What do you mean, where's my truck?"
No
and he's
way.
like, "Where are you coming from?" I'm like, "I flew in from Texas." He's like, "You're gonna ride this thing back to Texas?" I was like, "Yes."
Nice.
He's like, "I hope you have AAA." I was like, "I think I'll be fine." I was like, if I'm gonna go and buy a Turbo Busa, this is really the least of my worries, is thinking I can make it back to Texas. So
Did you quickly learn how unreliable they are? Did it make it?
it was, I actually never once had a single problem with that bike the whole time I owned it.
Wow.
That's insane.
Right?
That's
It was just-
honestly, that's as a guy who has one, that is insane.
Especially picking up somebody else's project at a
Yeah.
dealership. Damn.
No, I did do my research, so I called the guy that was selling it. I was like, "Hey, can I get the info of whoever put it together, who built it?" Like, I just want to give him a quick call. I just want to get some background on the bike. And it was a Velocity Stage 1 kit that was unintercooled, and it was a simple bike. Ran on pump 93, really no issues, and the guy that built it gave me a laundry list of everything that he knew about it, and how it was like one of his local friends' bikes, and that it was, maintained really well, and it was 10 grand. That's awesome. And I was like,
Yeah.
I can't hand it to you any faster. And rode it back to Texas and didn't have a single hiccup, except for literally loving every second.
Yeah.
It was, every once in a while, like a couple times in your life, you get those rides that just like make riding for you. And that was it. That's one of the things that kind of like, it's always hovering in the back of your brain, the dragon you're chasing almost.
So I got two follow-ups really quick on the stuff you just said. First of all, when you were talking about, you're like, yeah, started off with nitrous, did that for a couple years, blah, blah. It definitely sounds like you're talking about hard drugs. Where you're like, you're like, I started off with this, thought that was fun. Then, I want to try something else, like the corollaries between hard drug use and Turbo Hayabusas is so easy to make.
Dude, it is really, really similar, isn't it?
Very similar. Second of all, when you got on that turbo bike and you actually felt it, were you just like, yeah, this is it? Like, I want this all the time.
Yeah, it was game changer, because I've had some fast cars.
Yeah.
And when I say fast, I mean like 750, 800 plus.
Solid. Yeah.
Which is reasonable.
Yeah.
Until you get on a Turbo Busa, and then it doesn't mean.
This is what we try to tell people at home. We're like, you don't understand what this is like.
Yeah.
Like, this is like a mind-altering sense of power and speed.
Now, I've never done acid, but I imagine it's a similar response. Like, it just changes everything. Changes your perception on everything.
We always say that when we do a big pull on the turbo bike, you just kind of black out. You're just like, all you can see is just like the horizon point, and you don't really perceive anything else. Do you feel that way too? You're just like, yeah, I don't really know what the hell's happening.
Yeah, it gets better the more you ride, because you learn to like focus through it.
Yeah.
But you usually chase that feeling with more boost or more cubes or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter. So you're chasing that feeling of like being just out of your mind, like out of control. So yeah, it is an amazing feeling that it's hard to describe to people. Yeah. Now, okay. When someone asks you, be like, I'm thinking about building a turbo bike, like a turbo leader bike. Really? I know it seems like a good idea, but do you really know what you're getting yourself into? Yeah. Like, it sounds like a blast, but everybody I know that's had Hayabusas or S1s or R1s or ZX14s, ZX10Rs, they're always like, this is amazing. I was like, okay, add 100 horsepower to it now. And they're like, no, I don't want to. Yes, yeah, it sounds like fun until you like actually have it, and then like where do you actually like crank it open? On the toll road. And usually if you have to get on it, if you want to go play on like a normal road, you got to scout it down, back, and then make a pass, and then shake the whole way home. It's a weird thing to try to explain to someone. It's like people that have never jumped out of a plane, like never been skydiving, be like, oh, it sounds like fun. It's terrifying. Yeah. But you'll go back and you'll do it again and again and again until you're out of money, which is very similar, like drugs.
Yep, exactly like that. Yeah.
So what's your current turbo build like? We talked about the first one that was actually really well put together. How's the new one looking?
New one is, well, I've had it for a while. I actually bought it as a turbo bike in New York, but it was a piece of shit, man. It was just really poorly done. It didn't scavenge. It leaked oil, burnt oil. It didn't run right, and it was $6,500. Like, that's my base. That's easy. So took it apart. It was rods, pistons, no base plate. Started off with 750cc injectors, and it was I think it was a 28 GT25 or GT28, internally gated, and it made right about 300 maxed out, and ate the turbo. And I was like, I could just replace it. It's still going to be a blast. It's still 300 wheel. Like, you don't need more than that. Yeah. Well, it doesn't have a 28. It's got a 5252 on it now.
Yikes. Yeah. Oh my God.
On a fabricated tubular manifold, and it's externally gated.
See, this is the type of that you can only do as like a guy who had a shop, and like it seems like your knowledge base is so deep to be able to do this. You know what I mean? Like when I got into my turbo build, I didn't know what the I was doing at all, and like I have no mechanical background, so I had to take it to experts and spent a year troubleshooting bull. But like it seems like you're a guy that you approach this and you're like, no, I can figure this out. I can do this. Is that how you feel about it?
It's half the fun. I mean, riding it's fun, but building it's like for yourself. There's a whole another aspect. And a lot of people don't have the time, the money, or like really the will to go through and learn the process and figure out how to make it work. And sometimes it doesn't go as planned. But to me, that's building it's half the fun, because you get to literally just make it whatever you want. Who's going to tell you no? Yeah. You don't have to have a shop being like, that doesn't work. Well, it might, and I'm going to find out if it does or doesn't. Yeah.
Just give it a shot, see what happens.
The the newest turbo bike is a Gen 1 05. It's, like I said, rods, pistons, heads untouched, tubular manifold 5252. It's on a PC5 right now. Having trouble controlling 1300cc injectors, which is makes sense, because that PC5 is just like not having a good time. So change the fuel tech, either that or just downsize the injector for the moment. But on straight ethanol, it makes it hard, because you really need all the fuel, or at least a lot of it. So, and I don't want to run spaced injectors. I don't want to have to run secondaries. I want to just run single set of injectors. It's less to worry about leaking. It's less to worry about lines. I mean, you got enough stuff going on in a Turbo Hayabusa. Do you really want two sets of injectors? And it's just, simplicity always seems to make things last longer, I find. So,
is it intercooled?
It is not.
Okay.
That's why it's on straight E.
Yeah. You need to run as cool as possible.
Yes. If I was smart, I'd probably put it on methanol. But I'm not trying to make 5.
Yeah.
right now.
It would be, I mean, unless you're building like a mile bike, you know, then you'd want those kind of power. Because that's the guy that built mine. He was like, at some point, it's just stupid. It's just a flex for a number on a page, right?
Yeah. And even 300s, I mean, you can put it down on like a Shinko if it's stretched or something like that, or like a slick. But if you want like a short wheelbase street tire
normal
bike,
looking bike, yeah. Normal handling.
It gets out of hand real fast. So bike made 331, 332 last time it was dynoed on thousands. And it was an absolute riot. And my buddies call it the brown note. So how that came to be is because, I mean, brown's not, you don't normally look at a bike and be like, you know what that needs to be? It needs to be brown. But I built this 89 turbo super front wheel drive Civic a couple years ago, and there's this BMW color called Pyrite Brown Metallic. It's gorgeous. Looks like a shiny chocolate bar. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna paint it this color. And the bike, whenever I bought it, was red. And I was like, I hate red. No offense to anyone who's got a red bike, but just not my taste. I was like, I need to do something else. And I look over in the corner, and I've got a half gallon of pre-mixed Pyrite Brown Metallic. I was like, oh, that's perfect. I'm gonna have a Turbo Hayabusa and a stupid Civic, the same color. I was like, if it's only good for a really good picture, like I'll take that.
Nice.
So the bike is literally metallic brown.
You're like, I've got 2 4-cylinder turbo things.
Yeah, and both equally useless.
Yes.
It's wonderful. Yeah.
The next one we've got is, well, you already said how much power does it make, but one more time for the folks at home, what are you making?
332 wheel horsepower.
As a follow-up to that, you know, it seems like you're a guy that allegedly does a lot of roll racing and has some fun on toll roads and those sort of things. Allegedly, in Mexico, those sort of things.
Hence the shirt.
Hence the shirt, yeah. Has anything ever beaten your bike?
I've had one really close run that was back and forth, and it was when I was, now I've only had a few runs at 330 wheel, and nothing's been able to touch it yet. I know a few people in Austin that would spank me, so it's not like I'm untouchable, and I don't want to give off the notion that that's true. But the closest run I ever had was a R35 GTR that was, I just call it max effort. So like, I think it made like 1900 wheel, and it was almost 1900 wheel, and it was amazing. And I'm really bad about like putting cameras whenever I go out to play, because who am I going to run into?
Right? Yeah.
Like on a Turbo Busa.
Yeah.
Until you run into the person that is like ready to like with you.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, I f***ed up. This would have been so great.
But I mean, it just goes to show how much power you need to make out of a car to get
even close.
To get right neck and neck with a turbo bike doing 330.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were saying that for our bike that makes about 270 at the wheel. I was telling the video, I was like, you probably need about a $1,300, $1,400, $1,500 or 1,500 horsepower car to keep up. You know, like you need a lot of power to keep up.
Because the rate of return for motorcycles, I mean, once you make about, I'd say 300, that's where like the return doesn't quite give you what it does if you were in a car.
Yeah.
Now, cars just want to mangle you up. I mean, they want to go every which way. But bikes, all they want to do is go straight.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to like drive the thing. It's just like a flying needle. Like, it just wants to go straight.
It's a good way of putting it.
So it's hard once you get to like 500. I've got a few friends that have bikes that make, you know, 400, 500 plus, and I don't know what they do with them. I imagine the same I do, just way faster. So, I mean, it is a lot of fun. It is a hell of a riot, and now I'm dailying or riding a lot a slow Gen 3.
Well, speaking of which, it's a follow-up question for us. So Gen 3 was pretty controversial when it came out. I think a lot of people thought that it maybe would make H2 levels of power, or maybe be boosted from factory, something a little more wild. What we got was a basically lightly updated Gen 2. How do you, as a dyed-in-the-wool Hayabusa guy, feel about the Gen 3?
You know, I put a pre-order in on it before I even knew all the details.
Nice.
So I was like, I want one. I'm gonna go get one, and I'll just take whatever they give me and hope it's good. And if I don't like it, I'll change it. It's not a game changer by any means.
Yeah.
But it's a great bike. Like, as far as just being a motorcycle, if you want to take the Hayabusa name off of it, if you want to just look at it as a motorcycle, it's a fairly big cc, torquey, big body bike that's comfortable, that from the factory sounds like a sewing machine. But it's enjoyable all the time.
Yeah.
Now, is an H2 enjoyable all the time? Yeah, it is. But it does get a little cramped. Like, we're not talking about like an H2. What is it? A Z?
The ZH2? Yeah.
Yeah. The riding position on those is probably, you could probably live with that every day and love it. But like a normal H2, it's a smaller frame bike. I mean, a little cramped. And do you really want to? I'm not going to take an H2 on a 6-hour trip to the coast. Like, I just don't want to do it. I'll take this on a ride to Washington if I want.
Yeah. A lot of guys outfit these as like sport touring bikes, basically.
Yeah.
Put bags on them and ride them for thousands of miles.
And they're great for that. And as a bike, just looking at it as just a motorcycle, it's a really good bike. It's not a great Hayabusa, to be honest. That's the problem. So,
do you feel like it's been watered down a little softened around the edges? Because when I rode it, I kind of felt like it wasn't as hard-nosed as a Gen 1.
No, it's not. Gen 1's like someone coming up and slapping you in the face.
Yeah.
Gen 3 is like someone like tickling you with a feather duster. I was like, it still does something for you, just something different.
Yeah.
So I love it. I like it. I like the nannies. I like all the aids. I think it's a nice update. I just think Suzuki had all this ability, all this technology to put into making a killer bike that not only had all the assists and all the comforts, cruise control, which is everything. My favorite part of this bike, just cruising down 183, just like.
Yeah.
So there are really great things about it.
Yeah.
And with a little bit of work, it can be better, but it's not going to be an H2. It's not going to be a kitted out, bolted on, or bolt-on S1K.
Yeah.
You got to know what you want to do with it.
Yeah.
And what it is going to be, rather than what you wish it would be. And if you really want that, then you've got 40 grand and you can build the first Turbo Gen 3.
Yep.
I just hope it doesn't have to be me.
Well, with that shot of nitrous, it may be you one day. Now, here's a follow-up question from all that. We've talked about your turbo bike, the Gen 3, your feelings on that. What do you think about, because it's something we talk a lot about on the channel, is the sort of Hayabusa subculture? You know better than anyone, having owned one for so long, that there is like a whole guy who owns a Hayabusa. Like, there's a whole like idea of who owns the bike, what these guys are like, the stretches, the underglow, the chrome, all that. What are your feelings on that? Because you clearly don't strike me as a traditional Hayabusa guy, as you said that I'm not either. So just tell me about that.
That's going to be a little controversial, heads up. I think it's toxic.
Okay.
I think to have a bike that you just do one thing with is fine. But when you hate on people for not doing or following this, like, your protocol, like what you think a Hayabusa should be, I was like, what's the point? It's like, don't you buy a bike to get away from all that?
Yeah.
It's like, why do you add it back in?
Yeah.
It's like, it can just be, like, do people like big ass stretches, 330 wheels and underglow and pop bang tunes on Busas? Yeah. Go for it. I do not care. As long as it makes you happy, then go for it. Just don't tell me what to do with mine.
Yeah.
So, is it actually toxic? Probably not. But I get people be like, oh, you should do this. You should do this. Why haven't you done that? Oh, it needs yellow underglow.
Yeah.
Be like,
I cannot stand it. Someone tells me what my bike needs. I'm like,
yeah.
No. You don't tell me what my bike needs.
Pay me.
Yeah.
Pay me.
Yeah.
So with this bike, we've actually, for those of you at home who think you might recognize this is actually the bike that we've had twice now on the channel for a couple of videos. And last time we had it, it was bone stock.
It was.
And I see we've got the Brox pipe on there, and you're telling us a little bit more off camera about what you've got going on here.
Yeah.
But what have you done with this bike to sort of wake it up?
So I wasn't going to touch it at all, because there was no tuning solution for it, and if I can't tune it, I'm just really not that interested. But as soon as Moore said that he had a tuning solution, I was like, okay. I already had a cart set up. I just pushed pay. Called him up. I was like, hey, you can tune the 22s, right? He's like, yep. 1 day turnaround. I was like, it's on its way.
Nice.
Wow.
So the pipe, it's an alien head Brox. And then it's got, I did what I probably shouldn't have, and I lowered it a little bit. So it's as high as it can go with the mods. So it's got the Brox bars, like the lower bars. I think it brings it down 1.25 inches maybe in the front. And then the window links in the back, which are like as far down as possible, which actually means it's the highest. And I think it's perfect. I just sat in the garage after I did it the other day and just looked at it for 30 minutes, drank a beer. It's like, this is everything it needed. I was like, it doesn't have those 50-pound cans in it. By the way, it drops like 35 pounds off just doing the exhaust.
That's great.
Now it actually sounds good.
Yeah.
It's a little loud.
Yeah.
But then again, I ride a Turbo Busa, so it's naturally muffled.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
no, it's way better, and I will, I guess, report back on how much it actually wakes it up. I've seen the dyno numbers. I've seen what it does, and it's not huge. It's not like tuning an H2 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's not like the Gixxer thousands that have the TPS throttle sensor or throttle position pulled way back, like mid pole or certain RPM ranges and gears. This thing's fairly, I'm not gonna say it's uncorked. It's just they didn't tie it down as hard, which I was kind of hoping they had, because there was more room for improvement. But so it's got a sprint race filter, Brox alien head, and a few little lowering bits. But other than that, it's as it came.
Kind of like it in this stock trim because it looks a bit like a sleeper. You know?
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah. It doesn't really sound like much of one anymore.
Yeah,
but
It's a loud, big-ass black Hayabusa. I don't think it's a sleeper.
But it doesn't have the underglow to your earlier point. I mean, it's not like a Busa Boy bike. It's
that is true. But I don't know. I've seen a couple Busa Boy bikes with that make 300 plus, roasting 330s down the freeway. Props to them.
All right, man, it's been great having you here. We're going to have you review our Turbo Hayabusa here, but as a final word, you want to tell people about the Hayabusa life? You're speaking on behalf of all the Hayabusa men, so.
Okay. Well, I got a little bit of advice for anyone who's looking for one. Don't let anyone tell you what you should or shouldn't ride. Don't let your friends tell you to go buy something particular just because they ride one. Buy what the you like. And if they don't like that, they'll get over it, or you just won't be friends anymore. Ride what you want, man. And I ride a Busa. I love it.
Truer words were never spoken.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's like we've been trying to tell people the same thing, but maybe now an external viewpoint will drive it home.
Yes.
I hope so. A lot of people put a lot of emphasis on what their friends think because they trust them. And I trust my friends, but my friends tell me don't ride a Turbo Hayabusa, and that I'm gonna do it anyways.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of people that want to ride Hayabusas and like, oh, well, what are people gonna think of me? The bike's kind of ugly. I'm like, dude, do what you want,
Who
man.
cares?
Yeah.
Like, you have to ride it.
Yeah.
When you're on it, you don't have to look at it.
That's what I say about a lot of bikes.
Yeah, right?
A lot of bikes I say that about.
Yeah, just sit on something, take something for a ride, see what you like. You may end up on a 1098 or a Street Fighter, or hell, end up on a Diavel or a Night Rod. I don't know, actually. I got a sweet spot for Night Rods, so that's okay with me.
Too.
But yeah, it doesn't matter. R1M, you want to buy a, what is it, a Ninja 400 because it fits your budget and you want to get on the road? Do that.
Yeah.
Don't just wait a year to save your money. If you want to get on the road, go buy something you can attain. Buy something a couple years old. Doesn't have to be the best. Doesn't have to be brand new. Doesn't have to blow all your buddies out of the water. Just get on a bike. Have some fun. You can upgrade later if you want. Just go have some fun.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, with that being said, let's go look at the Turbo Hayabusa. All right, man, so this is my Turbo Hayabusa. Any questions about it other than why does it look the way it does?
Well, I'm sure there's a good story to it. Most bikes that are paired together off of other pieces usually have a good story.
Yeah, this gas tank was one that was lying around at the guy's shop that built it because the original gas tank was all rusted out on the inside. And I was like, well, just get another one on there. So that's why it has the funny gas tank on it. Yeah, so RCC stage 1 kit on it, but it's been massively changed and modified since then. The motor's completely built, so that's new pistons, new head basically, valve springs, injectors, the gasket spacer, I mean everything you'd want to do to it.
Yeah.
And so then bigger boost spring on it. It's running pump gas, which is great. It makes about 270.
So and 10 pounds?
It's 16 pounds actually.
16 pounds,
because it's a lower compression. We're running 8.5 to 1.
Oh, okay.
So it is actually super docile, low down.
Yeah.
It doesn't do anything. You roll it around, it's just like poodling, and then once it hits boost, it's just like, it's almost like a 2-stroke. It's insane. Yeah.
Well, any bike that's got an external gate gets like a thumbs up from me. I don't know, just something about sitting on like the limiter or spinning on the street and seeing flames pop out the wastegate screamer pipe. That's dope. If you're gonna own a Turbo Hayabusa, to just ride it, who cares what it looks like?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can rag on it if you want to. You're still gonna get gapped. So, I mean, yeah, it's got a different color tank and needs paint and like some work done, but that's not really why you build one in the first place. You build one just to have fun on. Can you have both? Yeah, but if you can always tell where people's focus is.
Yeah.
Focus is. You want a fast bike? You don't want to spend 35 grand on like a pulley down, carboned out, like H2 on BSTs. Like, this is where you go.
Yeah.
You want to have a riot anytime you get on it, then a pieced together Gen 1 with a good kit that's reliable and well tuned. Like, that's about as good as it gets. I mean, you got a carbon front fender on it, so like
I like the style a little bit, you know.
Hey, from the front, which nobody ever sees, is perfect.
Yeah.
But I mean, at 190, like, who cares? It's got an orange gas tank.
Yeah, it's just a big blur, anyways.
As long as it's comfortable to ride, as long as it works and is functional, then that seems like it checks every box. I mean, you don't have to look at it when you're riding it.
Yeah. I mean, I do have to look at this and this, but that's okay. I just pretend like it's not there.
You just pretend like the rest of the bike is orange.
Exactly, yeah, that's what I do. But yeah, it's also got the Brock's lowering links right there, the Brock's triple tree to allow for some changes up here, the carbon front fender, direct stainless steel lines, a different windshield. A lot of time has been spent on the important stuff on this bike. But most importantly, no stretch.
No stretch.
Bone stock swing arm, and I love it that way.
Let it spin.
Let it spin, baby.
Yeah.
That's what I always say. So 1 out of 10, what do you rate it?
As a wicked street bike, it only makes, you said what, 270?
Only 270,
so so you get
not in the 300 club.
You get an 8.5 on power.
Okay, not bad.
Which is important. Now the bike itself, like, does it look like a ragged out Busa? Yeah, that's what it is. It's a ragged out Busa with a big ass, with a turbo kit that makes good power.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I had to ride it and it wasn't boosted, like a 4.
Okay.
Because it's still a Busa, and I still want to sit on it rather than like a trapped out 600.
Yeah.
But, like, yeah, it needs body work, but it's a turbo bike. Like, who cares? I mean, people don't build like really wicked street cars, and if you're going out to do damage, does it matter that there's scratches and dings on it? No. I want to see some guy out with like a big single turboed 6-liter Ford Fairmont, like some sloppy special, like going out doing damage. And this is the bike equivalent. You come out to ride it, to do some damage, have some fun, take it home. And then whenever you want to go out and go grab a steak, hop on something else.
Yeah, this is not a date night bike.
You don't have one bike.
No.
So.
No, absolutely not. If this was my only bike, I'd need to have my head examined.
Right.
That would be crazy.
Yeah, but we would be really good friends if it was. Yeah. But even then, I can't say that because I got a Gen 3. So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, man, thanks for coming out. This was so much fun.
Thanks for inviting me, man. It's good to meet you guys, and thanks for the time. And whenever the ECU solution gets done with the Gen 1, we'll go ring them out.
Yeah, I think it would be fun to show what your turbo bike was versus this turbo bike. Could be fun.
See what a 60 wheel horsepower difference looks like on bikes.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean a ton in cars, but on these.
Oh yeah.
That's a lot.
It's a big difference. All right, guys, we hope you enjoyed the video. Catch you in the next one. See you later. Keep watching Gaming Noob!